Governor Rick Scott has named replacements for former city council members Reginald Brown and Katrina Brown. They're not related, but the two were suspended from office after a federal indictment on fraud and corruption charges. So the governor picked Jacoby Pittman to replace Katrina Brown and Terrence Freeman to replace Reginald Brown. But Freeman's appointment is creating a storm. Ken Amaro is on your side tonight. He's in the newsroom with more on this growing controversy.
The question is, where does Terrence Freeman live? And therein lies the issue. According to public records, they show that his homestead address is Lake Fern Drive East, and that is not in District 10. It is in Mandarin.
I'm going to still say that I'm innocent.
Reginald Brown and Katrina Brown were removed from their city council seats under a cloud of shame and disgrace. Now, a cloud of controversy follows one of their replacements. Daniel Henry is with the Duval County Democratic Party.
It's unfair for the constituents of District 10 to be represented by someone who lives 20 miles away, who is across the river, who has no connection to the district whatsoever.
Terrence Freeman, a former aide to City Council President Aaron Bowman, has been handpicked by Governor Scott to replace Reginald Brown in District 10. It appears to circumvent the city's residency requirement.
And it's unfortunate that the governor chose to be partisan in his choice.
Brenda Priestley Jackson lives in District 10. The former school board member's name was on a list of possible replacements.
The charter is clear and unambiguous that any member of City Council must not only be a member of the electorate of Jacksonville, Duval County, but a resident of the district, not after the fact.
Both Terrence Freeman and Jacoby Pittman have tried to get elected before and failed. They were with Mayor Lenny Curry earlier today, posing for pictures. Curry, in a statement said in part, Governor Scott chose two well-known and widely respected community leaders to serve on Jacksonville's city council. But the question in the community is, did the governor bend the city charter to put a fellow Republican in a district that is more than 60% Democratic, a district he does not call home?
There were many viable individuals who live in District 10. So I'm hoping the appointment is challenged because I don't think it's lawful. You remember, I'm a UF educated and trained attorney, okay? So the first thing you look at the statute. So I don't know that I don't believe it's a valid appointment.
No, I've reached out to Mr. Freeman all day. He called a few minutes ago and he said that as of right now, that he has met all of the residency requirements. He said today he signed the lease for a house in Northwest Jacksonville. He declined to tell me the address of where he's going to live. Also, I spoke with City's General Counsel, Mr. Jason Gabriel, and he provided this statement. He says the city charter requires that the governor's appointee reside in his or her district from the moment that person takes the oath of office and during the entire pendency of their tenure. As for becoming a candidate for that office in a future election, he says the charter also requires residency 183 days prior to qualifying as a candidate for that office. Gabriel says that our understanding is that the governor's appointees meet both such requirements. The new council members will be sworn in on Thursday. Back to you.